Hey everybody, and welcome to the next, actually the first flame and lustre tutorial. This is going to be all about how I deal with handling time warps in lustre, specifically when client facing and not being able to talk my way out of the fact that the time warp or the reposition that happens later doesn't exist or happens later down the pipeline. So this is actually triggered from the latest tutorials on lustre we've seen come out from Chris, and they're great. You guys should subscribe. He's only done 2 so far, but you know he's covering great stuff. And again, Chris doing these just kind of triggered me to think back to when I was using lustre daily with flame to things, little gotchas, I guess, that I use specifically when again when in sessions, and you know, specifically what they were used to when they were in sessions and used to being able to see in, say, a particular other piece of software. So what I have here on my timeline, so this is the equivalent of prepping. So this is in its simplest form. So literally this is a single shot, you know, timeline sequence. It's using red, the raw footage. You see it's referencing the 2K. If I go to media, you see this is actually uncached. At the bottom, I've just literally, just to simulate, I'll hard commit because it doesn't really matter. But just to simulate, again, my workflow is I usually have my offline or cut and copy down the bottom. And then I'll have for my middle layer. And again, this is in its simplest form because we all know that timelines aren't always this simple and only 3 layers. But I usually have my second layer, which is my uncached, but with the repos to match the offline. So this in particular has a 2D transform and a time warp and a burn-in letterbox. And then on top, what I have is the exact same thing, but hard committed. And that'll make sense once we get to lustre. So literally, I'll just show you. So literally what I would do is I'd conform and have this top guy to, again, just to match what I wanted. But yeah, and then I'd copy him, hard commit, and that's, you know, that's the guy there up there, just you know, ready to do this. So again, once this is ready for lustre, you know, it's already created my lustre library by default, and I'm just gonna, usually you have to acquire access. I'm gonna back-click acquire access. I'm gonna drop this guy on, release. It's gonna save, and then exit. Actually, first thing before I do that is just to get a look at this. If we do go and press play, you see I've just put in a really nasty slow mo just so you can see the point once we're in lustre. So again, let's just quickly jump out, and I'll just quickly close that, and I'm just going to open up lustre. Okay, so quickly start, and again I'm just going to clear these guys out. Okay, so first thing we're doing is bringing this in. Now the main thing is I want source grading on because, again, you don't want to have these guys baked in, and I'll show you in a second. So if I take source grading off and drag this guy down, and then just go to color and then timeline, you see, yes, it works for, it's going to work for the top and the bottom because these guys were hard committed. And you know, by default, you're probably thinking, okay, well, we got our focus point, we can move these up and down, and that works with the up and down arrows on the keyboard. If you have the nice fancy lustre panels or the tangents, they have little mapping keys for that too. But the gotcha with this is unless you enable solo, this won't work. So this is why source grading is crucial for this. But it's also interesting because it's a mix of source grading and hard committed stuff. So if we look at this and up down, you see everything came through except for our middle guy. And again, that's purely because source grading was not on. So before we do that, I'm just going to delete these and do this the right way. But I just wanted to show you why it's important to have that guy there. And I'm just going to clear those guys as well. And again, if we just pull this down, actually did that wrong. If we enable source grading and pull this down and actually do it. Now we go here. You see with solo on again, we see now we have, again, because we have source grading enabled, and if you remembered in Flame, this guy had a time warp and the repo and the burn-in letterbox. So essentially what you're seeing here. Now, again, this is really handy in the way that when you're in lustre, if you're in here and you don't have this hard committed top layer, you can't, unless, I mean, yes, you've got tools in lustre to repo, but I do not recommend that personally. But you can't see this time warp in context. Because again, if we go to the start of this clip and press play, you see that what we're seeing is the whole duration of this clip. Again, because if we go up to the top, I mean, the quickest way to see is, besides the really obvious steppiness of this time warp, if we scrub through, you see really the first eye blink happens right towards the end. But if we go back and again arrow down to the next one, you see the eye blink happens straight away, because again, that's how slow this slowdown is. But to my point, the reason I like to work this way is because, one, for me, whenever I'm using time warps should never be kind of baked, in my opinion, or there's no such thing as a time warp that doesn't need some help. So it really doesn't make sense, especially in a commercial world, baking that in the color stage. So if you do have access to it, I really think it's best to not do it to the whole thing. So how would this work with a client here? So the main thing, and the reason I would have this with clients here, is I could always like have a reference to the bottom layer, which is cutting copy, because often they'll be like, what does the original look like? So this way I can quickly just show them what the original looked like, and then show them what my latest looks like. So again, while they would be here, I'd I could do my grade however I like, get it looking kind of nice, add my secondaries, and go to, let's just say, to the shadows and look at the matte, and let's just shrink that the other way and then blur it out. If we look at the output, again, this is just really quick, just for, let's make it silly. So again, we've just done a little base thing and then something on top, and again, this is just for demonstration purposes. So again, if you had a bunch of edits in this timeline, which you usually would, I'd work with client in, and we'd preview and watch everything down with them here, again using the baked, transformation, and time warp, purely because they're going to be able to see things in context, and it's exactly what they're used to seeing with the offline. When they'd go is when I would then repurpose this down here. So again, this can get tricky if you have more secondaries, so it's just another thing to remember, and it's just the nature of the game. But yeah, if I just control drag that guy from here as well, we can copy from within there. And again, if there are no secondaries, yes, this is super easy. If there are secondaries, it's not too bad to just redo what you did, because again, sometimes you don't want to bake. If you did this in color and baked all this in, what happens if the client down the road said, hey, let's scale it back a bit and change the time warp a bit? You have to go through color all over again. So this is where this is really good. So now I'm just going to get this ready to render. So I'm going to keep source grade on for this, and I'm just going to clear all, set all, and I'm just going to go to the first frame of everything and press start. And because I got source graded on, it's going to chug through, and it's going to render my first portion, my second portion, and my third portion. Now, the bottom and the top, really, I didn't have to render. Actually, that's worth noting. I could have turned off the render flag for them, but in this example, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you're duplicating up on media. So that's literally base layer, middle layer, and then the top layer. So we'll just let this chug through. And again, there's a million different ways. If you are working from home, perhaps without clients there, this is something, again, you don't really need to have to talk yourself out of. But this is another thing to keep in mind too if you use the effects batch, because you're going to be doing that pre all this time warp stuff. So you really got to plan ahead when you're working with stuff like that. So it's going to exit out of this and just close this up, and we're going to go back into Flame. So this will have put this back in, and we'll just start that up. Okay, so you see by default, Luster's put out a little folder, and we've got this little guy with the sequence icon. So I'm just going to drag that out and just open that up. And you see we have our color applied to the top, which is fine. Doesn't matter. We're not going to use that. But you see we have the same color applied down here, but with all of our effects on it. So again, if I go to hide effects, you see, again, the beauty of this is, again, this is what we were seeing in Lustre essentially, bar the the burn-in letterbox is actually the resize of this red because of the aspect ratio, because it is 2048 by 864. But if I put effects back on, you see essentially it's exactly 1-for-1 of what we were getting from Lustre. But now, come comp-wise, or any other time down the pipeline, again, I'd usually just throw away the top, but any other time now in online or final stages, we can always now just do selection as clip or selection as flow graph. And again, we've always got access to our colored footage, but again, pre-time warp, pre-baking transforms. And again, the main reason is, again, if you do have clients in, it just really makes sense to have that 3-layer stack of the offline, your soft effects, and then your hard committed with your repos and stuff like that. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. For anyone that does use Lustre in succession with Flame, I hope this is useful. If anyone who uses Lustre with Flame has a tip on how they tackle this, specifically if they are with clients and the time warp thing, please let me know in the comments below. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope this was useful and shed some light on a kind of dark topic that you might not come across. But yeah, stay tuned for more.